In this episode of the IT Experts podcast, we help you work out what to do when good teams go wrong. Welcome to the IT Experts podcast, the only podcast to help MSPs scale to 1 million, and if already there, get to 5 and go faster. At the end of the day, isn't it all about building a business that works for you rather than you for it? I hope you enjoy the show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the IT Experts podcast and welcome back into the podcast lounge, the MSP Growth Hub's incredible leadership coach, Julie Hutchison. How are you doing, Julie?
Hello, I'm fabulous. Thank you.
Fantastic. We've got a real cracking show for the MSPs today, and we're going to dive straight in when good teams go wrong. Again and again and again, we're talking about people, the cost of people, the amount of efficiencies that are or aren't within MSPs, balancing it with the automation, this whole resource thing. How do we build a business that works for us rather than, it the other way around? And it always comes down to people, which is why we need people like you in our lives, Julie, unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way around you look at it. So great to see you. If people haven't heard you before, tell everyone, who are you, what do you do, and who do you help, Julie?
Well, I help business owners and leaders to grow their teams, therefore grow the profits in their business through the functionality of their team, helping teams to perform, because that's what's going to create ROI. As you said there, if our teams perform, it's because they want to perform. Yeah, it's not just function. As we were saying the other day, it's the feels. Yeah, it's not just the function, it's the feels. And so as much as we can set systems and processes and we can create all of the, the numbers and all of that stuff, if people don't want to do what you want them to do, they won't do it. Yeah. And so we have to have a team, a leadership team or any other team. But if we're talking about your businesses, your MSPs, they've got to have a team of people that can actually work together to create whatever it is they want to create in this world.
And it's okay. I think so many times people think that everybody in the team has to be the same. Everybody in the team has to enjoy what they're doing. But that's not the case, is it? We've spoken about DISC many times. Different people get into flow in different ways. They connect in different ways. And although you've got a technical team, generally the technical team is the largest team in the MSPs. It doesn't mean that everybody's all got to do the same thing and all be the same person and all be, operating in the same way, does it?
No, to be quite honest, that's the first point of dysfunctional teams and that you could try and do. The complete mistake is that people often make is the first thing they do is they build up clones of themselves. And then they wonder why things aren't any different. It's like, well, because you've just created some function over here that's the same as everybody else's function, but you've missed out all the bits you were lacking in the first place. So we want different people. We want different skills. We want different perspectives. Having said that, the thing you fear the most? The thing you need the most is also the thing that can cause you the most problems if you're not careful, because we have to be able to work together. And if we aren't able to understand the types of people and work together and deal with conflict and all of those things, then we just feel bad about the fact we've got these people that we don't understand, and we just argue and it goes nowhere. Egos get in the way, and people get confused by the way people show up, and conflict starts, and it all goes downhill, and then none of the function gets done because all of the feels is coming out negative. If that makes sense. And so we need all of those different kinds of people, but we have to be able to understand people and work together with those people, particularly in like your SLT. In the very first place.
So in one of the last shows, I coined the phrase the huffometer. The huffometer. Every time you huff is a signal to say you need to step back, fly up to 30,000 feet, and have a look at what's going on and kind of and make an assessment around this. So if an MSP owner is huffing a lot at their team and they can see that things aren't working quite well, what's the first step to, identifying, have I got a dysfunctional team or a functional team? What do I need to kind of do about it? What's the first thing that any leader needs to do in this situation?
Well, your first question was, how am I going to see it? So I just answered that first, which is like, what are you going to start seeing if I'm going to be huffing? What's the
Yeah.
thing? And you're going to find that you might have a bright idea and you're going to people and they're sitting there in their meeting with their arms crossed, or they're changing the subject and the egos are getting in the way and people are just arguing over stuff that you don't understand why they're arguing over it, because it just doesn't, it's like, well, what's your problem? Why aren't we actually able to do things? You might find that things get agreed in meetings and nothing happens. Yeah. You may find that everything's a blooming problem,
Yeah.
and that definitely is where your huff comes out. It's like, what is the problem here? And people are arguing for the sake of arguing, but they're not really. They're arguing because there's something going on underneath. Yeah. And so it's the surface level symptoms that you're going to start seeing of, why are we taking longer to do things? Why did that not happen when we all seemed to agree that it was going to happen? Why didn't you tell me this before when you're now telling me now? Or why are you blowing up into, getting the ump about something? What's going on? Or maybe I'm seeing a lot of turnover of staff as well. That would be, people are leaving. And so that's what you're going to start seeing. And what you need to do is you need to understand what's going on, because we were talking in your intensive about the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Yeah. And what that's talking about is, as Patrick Lencioni's model, is that at the very bottom, if you imagine like a pyramid is the word I'm looking for here, a pyramid, where at the very bottom of that is that we have to create trust. We have to be able to be open and honest with each other. And so, when you've got a bunch of people that are getting in the huff, not speaking to each other, blowing up in front of each other, or just showing this negative behaviors towards each other, it's probably because they aren't saying what needs to be said. Okay. Right. And they're not saying what needs to be said until the moment when they cannot hold it in any longer, and then it all comes out the wrong way. Okay. And that either comes out in behaviors like huffing around all over the place, stamping out of meetings and, acting like throw my toes out the pram type thing. Or it just takes so long to come out that, it's wasting time. And so people are guarded and not allowed to be vulnerable because they don't trust that whatever they say is going to be taken in the right way, or, that it's safe to do so. So that's number one, that we've got to build trust. We've then got to be able to have the honest conversation and deal with conflict, be able to say, no, I don't agree with you, Ian. No, you're talking rubbish. Yeah. Not like that, obviously, because that's not going to help. But to be able to say, no, I disagree, with genuine care, but to be able to say it. And because if we don't say it, then we just start resenting things, because it's not that we don't feel it, it's that we just sit there and seethe quietly, and then later on, not so quietly. And when we can have those good conversations, then we can say, right, well, as a team, this is what we want to do, and are we all committed to it? So, Patrick Lencioni says we've got to have that commitment to each other of what are we going to do? And when we have that, then we have those meetings where things get done. We have those times where, Ian, you're going to be doing this, and you go away and you go ahead and do it, because you take responsibility and you own that. Yeah. Whereas what we see when teams don't feel that commitment, probably because they're too busy not saying what needs to be said, is where everybody's a bit confused about what's supposed to happen. Everybody's not really sure what their role is. And then you go around in circles trying to reinvent the wheel every 5 minutes and trying to reinvent like what needs to be done. And then when it doesn't happen, if you're not able to have like the conversations about like, Ian, you said you were going to do that, but you haven't done it, and you hold each other accountable, because you can't do that, because again, you don't trust to say the thing that needs to be said, and you don't have the conversations that need to be had. And then that means that you don't work towards the same result. You don't work towards the goal of the business. You start to work towards your own agenda, okay? Because you've got the ump. And so if you were to look at all of that, what's it based on? It's based on that trust. What's that based on? It's based on communication. It's based on being honest and open. And so what do we then do about it? Well, we've got to start to learn to communicate, in my opinion. Yeah. All of that starts with, are you having good conversations? Are you able to communicate? Are you looking at people and understanding? You said about different types of people. Are you understanding the different type of people? Are you understanding what's going on for them? And are you communicating in a way that they're gonna take on board, let's say? Yeah. And if I'm entirely honest here, that's the hardest thing for a lot of MSPs. Yeah. Oh, I have to actually speak to people. And not because they're not good people, because of course they are, but quite often it's, I didn't want to upset somebody. Yeah, they're actually really nice people, and they're perhaps, not able to say what needs to be said because they're like, oh, I'm not sure how to say that without causing offence, or I think I might do, or I don't want to push too hard, or those things. So quite often it's that way around rather than just shouting and hollering, let's say. And so what we find is if we can work on the communication and the understanding of people, we can build this and therefore build really good teams, because then you start to trust each other. You start to have proper conversations. You can tell somebody no, or I don't agree, and be honest about it without causing World War III. And then people can say, right, okay, well, I trust you. I want to be in the room with you. Let's get on it. Let's work towards something. And now I can be completely safe and secure in the knowledge that the effort that I'm putting in is going to be reciprocated by everybody else in the team. And we're not going to have like little children conversations. We're going to have good adult conversations where we hold each other accountable. We can't do it without communication and trust.
Absolutely. And would that be a good time to mention a previous podcast that we did, which is the top podcast in the whole of the IT experts with you about difficult conversations? Would that be a right time to mention that?
Oh, you better watch that one, because I still need to keep that up. That number.
Yes. So blowing Julie's trumpet, a great episode, and I will never live it down. It is the most successful episode ever. Thousands of views on that one, which was absolutely amazing. Which is all about having a difficult conversation. So go into your favourite search engine of choice, hit the website, and go and check that one out, which is absolutely amazing.
But doesn't that prove a point that the most watched episode is how to have a difficult conversation? Because I don't like communicating, because I might offend somebody, or I don't know what to say.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've got to learn to use what we were talking about in your intensive, which was Kim Scott's radical candor. In her book, I think it's How to Be a Kick-Ass Boss. She talks about how do you successfully intersect the two elements of caring personally but challenging directly. Okay. In other words, I have empathy. I care. I don't care as in like, oh, I love you, Ian, as much as I do, Ian, of course. But I care about you because I care about how you feel and the impact of me on you and the impact of you on me. So I have empathy for who you are, how you think, what's going on for you, and what you need. But equally, I have the ability to say, yet I disagree with you, or I'm going to challenge what you say, or I'm going to challenge what you do, in equal parts, really. Because if we can do that, then we have what she described as radical candor, which is the ability to say what needs to be said in a way that the other person can actually hear it and do something about it without being entirely offended upon it, because it's done in a way that is sensible and realistic and empathetic. And if we don't do that, then we fall into three other groups, essentially. And the first one, which I think a lot of MSPs owners fall into, and I was talking to one the other day about this, is what's called ruinous empathy, Ian.
Okay.
Which is where I have so much caring personally, so much empathy for people that I then choose not to. I have a lot of empathy. I can understand other people, and then I find it difficult to challenge directly. So basically, I say nothing, okay, because I'm so busy caring for the other person and being empathetic towards the other person. So I ruin my objectives and my agenda by over-giving to everybody else in terms of like, well, what do they need? Okay. And so, well, that doesn't work, because then I don't get what I want. It's like a win-lose in the difficult conversations section.
Yeah.
And then we have the other side of that. It's like, well, I don't care personally. Actually, I don't care at all about you, Ian. But I'm still not going to challenge you because I don't like those conversations, because they still make me feel bad. Okay. So that's a bit like passive aggressiveness, because I'm not going to say anything to you. I'm not going to say, Ian, that was unacceptable. So I'm going to be manipulatively insincere. Okay. So it's like, I think the perfect example of that is when say, how are you, dear? And they say, fine.
I'm fine.
I'm fine. It's like, no, you're not. Yeah. But it's like, I'm not being true. I'm not being honest.
Yeah.
But I'm
not
also
bad, the other one, isn't it?
I'm not being helpful. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the other one is that I also don't care. So I'm down on that bottom half of the graph, but I will challenge you.
Yeah.
In which case then I become obnoxious. Yeah. So I'm going to be obnoxiously aggressive. Can't even speak today. And that means that I'm going to say exactly what I think because I want to say it, but I'm going to have no care for you. Okay. Which is awful. Yeah. And so radical candor is that beautiful blend of being able to say what needs to be said and having good conversations that say, let's work together. I can see your point of view, but I disagree. Or can we do this? Yes, we can. Okay, brilliant. And working in a space where everybody is able to be open and honest, which includes that vulnerability and that trust.
Absolutely love that. And I'm sure that, as you were just explaining that there, not only was I popping into my head where you can either think of people that you've come across in your life who fit in one of those boxes. And I'm sure the listeners here today are going, oh, that's me. Oh, that's me.
Yeah, but we'll all fit into each one of those boxes at some point as well. I mean, I put something on one of your posts the other day that probably fit into the old manipulative insincerity because I had the ump with you. And so, the thing is, it's so easy to go into these things, so nobody's perfect and we can't all sit in the same place all at once. So, we are human. But it's this understanding of like, oh, actually, hang on a second. Do I have a tendency to be in one place or another? Everybody dips into it, other bits. But I want to try and get into radical candor as much as possible. Because if I want my team, let's talk about my SLT. If I want them all to be absolutely on fire and we're on fire in the same direction and we're looking at the results that we're creating and thinking, look at us, we are amazing. Yeah. It is a team. It's a group of people who are supporting each other, who are honest with each other, and are working towards the same goal. So it needs this. It needs you need to be able to be honest and to be able to trust that you can be.
Absolutely.
If scaling your MSP is your goal, but you're not sure which road to take, then you'll really want to get hold of the MSP Growth Guide. It's the shortcut most MSPs wish they had much earlier on to work out what the right support is for them. Even better, if you like meeting up in person, why not come to join us at one of our live events? See the system, meet the people, get inspired, get to kick the tires and see exactly what we get up to at the Growth Hub. So, details are on the show notes below. Go have a look, click and come and join us, and we look forward to seeing you another time. But let's get back to the show.
Thanks, Stuart. What was some of the feedback and conversations that you had after you delivered that session to the guys at the Growth Hub Intensive a few weeks ago?
Oh, the feedback. Well, I mean,
or what conversations kind of, that was me, or kind of, how did that spark the conversation, which is what the purpose of the session was, wasn't it?
There was a couple of people who had a little bit of a light bulb moment as to why certain people have left their business because they never had the conversations that they could have had. So what those ones, I won't name any names, but what happened there is that something wasn't said, something wasn't dealt with, and therefore we ended up in obnoxious aggression or manipulative insincerity, and it got what I call, Ian, old and hairy. Okay. Like I have this vision, I don't know why, but like a piece of mold, like a piece of bread when it goes moldy and it starts getting old and hairy, and it gets worse and worse and worse, and it's like, oh God, that's horrible. Or it gets stuck to something, you can't get it off at that point. Right? That's what happens when you don't have the conversations that you want to have. So what happens is that good people who you might even, if you're listening to this, you might even recognize this, where you might have been best friends at the start. You might have had a really brilliant relationship, right? But something wasn't said and something wasn't dealt with, okay? And then trust has gone. We didn't hold people accountable. We didn't have the conversation we needed to. We didn't deal with that challenge that we needed to. And then resentment grew, okay? Confusion grew, resentment grew, egos grew, right? And frustration and annoyance grows. And it's all because you haven't dealt with it, because you didn't do anything about it. But what happens is, if we're not being open and honest, is that it gets so big, old and hairy that now it's massive, and now we can't say anything until we really do, and it all hits the fan, let's say. And so there was a couple of people who are like, oh my God, if I had dealt with the thing that I should have dealt with, that person probably wouldn't have left. And we might still be friends, and we might still be working together as a fabulous team. So that was one thing. A lot of people were saying, oh God, like I'm totally in ruinous empathy. Help. Which is why we then talk about having difficult conversations, because that's because it's all very well sticking ourselves in a quadrant here, but the question is always, how do I get out of that one if I don't want to be in that one? So that's why we talk about, how do you have difficult conversations? What do I say? When do I say it? How do we say this? Yeah. And so we want to pull ourselves across into radical candor, but there's got to be a methodology. You can't just snap your fingers and we're done. So a lot of people are like, okay, how do I do that then? So we then have the conversation about, well, what do I say to Bob? So I had a lot of those like, Julie, can we just have a quick conversation?
Yeah.
I've got a Bob, which is our favourite name, of course.
Favourite name.
So a lot of people like that. And a lot of people just saying, flipping heck, that's why we don't have the top level, which is we're not working towards the same results. It's because we haven't really built the trust yet. It's not that we've got bad people, but we've not set the climate of the team to be able to perform at top level. And there's too many little niggles, which do get old and hairy and then go horribly wrong if we do. So, it's a dangerous situation.
And that's the business owner, it's the self-awareness, it's the being consistent with the messaging and kind of like just making sure that we've got, we do all the things that we talk about every day at the Growth Hub, but also kind of what we talk about on the podcast, those small pieces. If some MSPs have triggered themselves today with this and said, I need to be a bit more like this, or I need to be a bit more like that, how do they approach this model? What's the best kind of action for them to take after listening to today's show?
Come and talk to us. I think that's a good start.
Yeah.
I think the first thing, it's a bit like Alcoholics Anonymous. You've got to accept that you are where you are. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, actually, I'm seeing something here. We're not very open and honest, or we have got great. That's good, because that's the first level of acknowledgement, instead of putting your head in the sand and pretending that hairy little thing isn't going to grow horribly. Okay, so that's the first thing. And then I think the next thing is to really sit down and have a good conversation with people. For example, your SLT, if it's there, and say, I want us to talk to each other better. I want us to have a better relationship. I want us to be able to trust each other, and to set that foundation, that scene of like, I don't feel that we actually do have enough of a trust, and to open up the conversation and be honest about the problem. Because we can try to fix by putting a sticking plaster on many different things, but that isn't going to work, because you could just say, well, say more then. Yeah, like communicate more. It's like, yeah, but once you've got this issue, you need to talk about the problem as opposed to try to fix the problem, as in like, I'm noticing a pattern here.
Yeah.
And the minute you can say, I'm noticing a pattern that we don't speak to each other, when we don't say what needs to be said, or we're always arguing, or whatever you're noticing, you're kind of labeling it and naming it as a thing that we all as a group of people can help to solve. So we're not blaming, we're not going into like, you need to stop doing that. We're saying, I'm not sure this is right, and then we need to talk about it. Yeah. And then I think the biggest thing is to leaders go first, a vulnerable conversation about how you feel about it and what you really want. And then to ask for people to recommit to being a team.
Yeah.
You see how that's not the function. It's not like we need to do more. It's like we need to commit to being a team before we do anything. Yeah. And to be honest with each other. And it's not always easy. It sometimes needs a bit of facilitation, or it needs people to kind of go through things with you, a specific situation. But I mean, we've had one really lovely team that we've been working with in your group that sat down, and they won't mind if they recognise themselves in this, but they won't mind me saying that they're, not the sort of people that are sitting there normally doing the old touchy-feely type stuff.
No,
like that.
Definitely not.
No, and came to the offices, and they got Julied, I think the word was,
because
they were assisted in being honest and open and vulnerable with each other. Okay, so it was a very uncomfortable situation for them at the start, but they were able to really say how they felt, really say what was important to them, really say what they loved and didn't love about what the situation was. And now they've moved forward, and now they're absolutely cooking on gas and on fire.
Oh no, it's been amazing. It's been incredible to see that team. Many people said you won't fix that team, and
there you go.
We're certainly on a very positive route to that.
Exactly. That's what it needs. That you need to be able to be open and honest with each other.
Yeah. Julie, a lot to take in, but I think a real gentle message there for MSPs around, if you're huffing and you're puffing about your team, you need to go and have a look in the mirror. That's where it all starts 9 times out of 10. Whenever anything goes wrong, I even had a situation this morning where I came in, had a conversation with the team, and there was a misunderstanding with an instruction. And, it's so easy. And I remember, back in the day when I was a lot younger and a bit more fiery, that you'd just go straight in, bull in a china shop, have a go at people, and then they turn around and go, well, it wasn't actually me because you didn't tell me to do that properly to start with.
Yeah.
And that's, it's not okay, but it's part of living and learning, isn't it? And as you learn and grow from these things, it's always that self-awareness and that using that radical candor to understand where you are, understand where they are, and then rebuild that team. I think rebuild that culture of that team, as you sort of say. Once you've had those conversations, I think the respect just goes up a few notches straight away.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, like every single human being, dare I say, has feelings, and we are driven. Our behaviours are driven by our feelings and our emotions.
Yeah.
Right? As much as we say, "Oh, I don't, oh, no, I'm not," it's like, yes, you are. And so, if we feel, angry, that's a feeling, an emotion. If we're angry or we're frustrated or we're annoyed or whatever the thing is, we are driven by that. And so we have to have the conversation that can, cope with that, can uncover what's going on and making us feel, dare I say, bad.
Yeah.
And when we stop doing that and we start having good conversations, suddenly we realise that we're all good people. Nobody comes to work or starts a business because they want to be horrible.
No.
Yeah, we're all good people. We just need to be more communicationally vulnerable and open with each other.
What a statement to end the show.
I know.
Communication vulnerable. I think you're absolutely right. I would not have said it like that in a million years, but you did, and that will be one of those things we'll try and turn into the language book of the MSP Growth Hub, along with all our other 184 million acronyms. And we'll see how that goes. Julie, absolutely amazing information there for MSPs to kind of walk them through that and to help them to work out when good teams go wrong and what to do about it. Any final thoughts? You're happy to wrap up? I think we're good.
I think we're good, apart from talk to each other.
That's it. Talk to each other. Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Julie. Again, I know it's late in the day and it's been a long couple of weeks, so I appreciate your help and support putting the show together and sharing with the incredible MSP audience out here. So I look forward to catching up with you on the next one. All the listeners there, we'll see you in the next week, and take care. Look after yourselves. Be good. Listen to the show. See you later.
Bye.
Take care. But just before you go, I need to tell you about next week's episode. We have got Mit Patel from Assurix. He went from under £1 million all the way up to an £8 million MSP. And he's going to help you understand the steps to take to stand out from the crowded MSP market space. You're going to absolutely love it. Don't miss it next week. Wait. Just before you go. And if you're curious about how this episode links with the ability to scale your MSP to $1 million, or if you're already there, accelerate to 5, then we want to invite you to come and take the MSP Mastery Quiz. And in just 3 minutes, you're going to get a 360-degree scan of your business where you can identify the 1 or 2 tactics that can help you find more time, engage and align your people, and help generate more leads in your MSP. It's really simple. Just click on the link in the show notes. And if you have enjoyed this episode, we'd love to get some feedback from you by means of a rating, review on Spotify or iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. We really appreciate every single one of them. Now you can go and enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to catching up and connecting with you soon. All the best now.